work so that we're safe. So I understand that, but, you know, these are some questions that I think to have those answered, it might help some of the people in the community at least understand it a little bit better or hopefully accept it if it is approved to move forward.
Well, we would certainly do an educational campaign prior to the implementation of the program. Also, there would be a grace period, as there is with any new ordinance. We don't go out and start citing right away. We give warnings. But once that's over, you know, those same people would lose their job if they engaged in criminal activity, but they don't, by and large.
Yeah,
It's no different. It's just changing behavior.
right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Hand. Councilor Rieger.
Thank you, Chair. Well, there was a comment you made about 10 vacancies. Did I understand that correctly?
Sure.
So what is your head count right now? Is it the 86 in the budget?
76.
It's 76. So we're
That's
way short.
department-wide.
Yeah, we can't add, if we had 2 more positions we're already, if you can find anyone, you use them for the open positions you already have.
We
It's
have
like we can't staff this.
Yeah, we have several that are in the process of onboarding at the moment. We have 2 that are temporary that we use to fill in pending hiring and dispatch, which has always been historically difficult to fully staff. But I'm confident the department is well respected within the law enforcement community, and we get excellent candidates. And again, as I stated a couple of weeks ago, we would be fully staffed, but we've had a series of retirements this year, and with those, it's just hard to keep up at times. But this project is important enough that I would probably pull off of shift to staff this.
Well, how many officers are you short?
5.
5 officers short. So I don't see what adding 2 does, except now you're 7 short. I mean, they're not there, right? So
I believe we'll get there.
Madam Chair, Councilor Greer, if I could just chime in
Go
on that. Often we've actually seen a really nice uptick in number of applicants for our recruitments, and it's not that we haven't been hiring and being very successful hiring officers and dispatchers. It's just that we've also seen people also leaving. So it's just a matter of trying to keep up with the recruitments. But we are receiving applicants and good applicants for these positions. It just takes time to process them and get them to a point where they're sworn in as an officer. Because as Chief Scambolo mentioned, the process it takes a little while.
yeah, it's still pretty far behind when it comes to doing an increase in staffing. We're already pretty far behind. Huh? And another thing is, why is the option for the speed cameras recurring? Is that a rental?
So
It's not a piece of equipment we purchase?
depending on the vendor, there's really a wide range of options there, but typically I would say yes, you are correct. You pay a fixed amount per camera per month. Sometimes that's dependent on volume, and I've seen it both ways, where it's dependent on ticket volume and when it's not.
Well, the person you rent it from, they do the citation process then?
They do almost, if you pay part of that monthly fee, does allow for administrative costs, and it's not 100%, but it's nearly 100% of the administrative side of this. An officer still has to view each violation. There's website development, form development, signage development on our end, maybe some other smaller things. But we can get them to do the mailings, if we do a collections route, I mean, all of that back end on the administrative side, we can opt for them to do that if we choose.
Yeah. So Okay, so the budget item, the way it's written, is renting the equipment and getting services with it to write the,
Essentially, yes.
okay, and then you'll have an officer monitoring that? Or
Yes, so
actually looking at
the system, if this were active,
yeah,
these 580 vehicles would be shifted to a database that the officer would log into and have to review each one of those to verify that the violation occurred. It was the vehicle matches what is being said on the citation. He or she clicks either yes, and it goes back to the company and they handle the back end, the mailing and such, or no, at which time it's dismissed immediately.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Reaper. Other questions? Counselor Happen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief, for bringing this to us, for the research, the data, and the thinking that you've developed on this year. I would like to please understand better the 200K one-time budget item. I don't really understand the notes on there. It says 2 outfitted patrol vehicles dash traffic and speed camera duties, but it's only a one-time. Can you explain better what that line item means?
We, Madam Chair, Councilor Haverman, what's the word I'm looking for? It's about 100,000 a vehicle. What that is 2 cars for each of these two, one for each officer. And that's probably on the high end, but that's a completely outfitted unit. So beyond the basic vehicle price, you have in-car camera, you have radar, you have LiDAR, you have lights, you have radio, you have the cage, so there's a lot that goes into just on top of the basic price of the vehicle. So that's on the high end, 100,000, I think, for 2 or for 1 each. But that is to outfit a vehicle for each officer.
And Madam Chair, Councilor Hammond, if I could add to that, anytime the county adds a new vehicle to their fleet inventory, the first purchase comes usually as a budget offshore or in the budget out of the operating fund, and then it goes then into our replacement fund and our fleet fund, and they get charged replacement costs through IDC. So that's why it's a one-time, because the replacement of this down the road will be collected through IDCs and paid for out of the fleet fund.
Okay, but it says duties, so I guess these 2 vehicles have, the word duties made me think of human resources, but it's really just 2 vehicles performing the duty of, that's what's throwing me off.
It's really just 2 vehicles, but
Okay.
I think that was added in there to say that the officers would be supporting not only the speed camera program but other traffic initiatives. They would be out running traffic enforcement,
So
traditional
red light running, yada, yada, yeah, reckless driving, et cetera, careless driving,
handling accidents,
Yeah.
handling
all traffic.
public
Okay, now I get it.
education, all those things.
Okay, you're just trying to say we're going to have these 2 specialized vehicles, but the officers who operate those vehicles, they will be doing more than just speed camera duties. They will be doing the whole
Absolutely.
kit and caboodle, which was kind of one of your earlier points in a way. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I guess I feel resentment about not feeling safe driving on our roads. And I hear from people who feel the same way. I feel resentment about not feeling safe riding a bike on our roads. My husband rode from here to Santa Fe and back today, and he's done that ride for years. And he starts at our house, but today because I feel scared about this, he drove to Tatavi and parked there, and that's where he started and ended his ride. Because you can't drive the main hill, can't do Pareto anymore pretty much since 9/11, and State Road 4 is ridiculous. You know, it just doesn't feel safe around here. For a small town that cherishes its safety, it doesn't feel safe. And I think if people feel resentment, then they need to change their behavior. That's just how I feel about it. I really don't care. And so it doesn't mean that I'm not saying it needs to be at the expense of other needs. You know, like when Mr. Courtwright says he would like to have more patrolling, that doesn't mean I'm against any of the other things. You know, there's a lot, distracted driving bugs me, running red lights. And I don't want us to turn into like how it is to drive in Santa Fe. I want to share too that I was parked behind El Parasol today, and I'm just pulling out where it's all diagonal parking behind CB Fox, and this big pickup truck comes out of nowhere, flying through that parking lot, and like we're like head on. I swerve, I look in my rear view mirror, and a pedestrian coming out with his tacos from El Parasol, like throws up his food. It was terrifying. And I know that wouldn't have been caught on this, but my whole point is, it's kind of what I talked about when you came to us before. We need to start having a culture where we are going to try to nudge behavior, and we're just not going to have tolerance for people just thinking they can drive however they feel like it. And so you can tell I feel very strongly about this. And so I'm very glad you brought this to us. I think the data, I mean, I'm just like shaking from that truck route data, just because we all drive that, or kids drive it. And so I think we need to start with this, and we might need to do, where we're going to need to do more with the distracted driving. That one's coming back to us on May 6th. And we might need to do more with running red lights and et cetera, et cetera. So thanks for listening, and thanks for bringing this to us. I will be supporting these budget options.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haveman. Councilor Righty?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief, for bringing back the data. Seems like one of the other things is just the range and speeds, especially during those kind of peak times. I mean, there's 25, 30 mile an hour differences in speeds of vehicles going up that hill. That seems like, I mean, so compressing the top end helps that. And of course, we know about the discussion about pedestrian, or if you're in a vehicle, you're a little bit more safe because of the way the vehicles are constructed these days. But if you're, those 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour are all more deadly, right? So there's that part.
We think that the lower speeds are probably trucks.
Just coming up.
Yeah.
And so was this where there actually are 2 lanes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So people can be passing. Because I think that is one issue that I have seen, is with people will be coming up on a vehicle that's unexpectedly slow. And the other thing, I think one of the reasons why there is the guideline for the 45 is that there are wildlife. And I remember from the Lano data that truck route corridor is one of the places where there's a lot of animal collisions. And that just adds to it. So if people are driving too fast, and with the argument that it's unsafe for your officers to be out there doing this, I'm not sure what other questions we have, but we'll have some more discussion about it, I'm sure. But it seems like it is, from what you've described, a fairly cost-effective way to try to maybe nudge behavior. We're not sure how much it's going to change behavior at this point, but yeah, I mean, 2.4% is a fairly large fraction, right, of vehicles, and they're coming up at, not quite 1 a second, but more than 1 every 2 seconds during those peak times. So it's pretty dangerous to have that kind of traffic going that fast. I did want to ask one other thing. So you mentioned homeless, so unhoused people. So where do they? What happens to people that don't have a place to live currently? Because I think the Espanola, is their shelter still accepting people at this point? Is that one place they're going, or can you just explain what happens to people that don't have a place to live?
Madam Chair, Councilor Righty, You mean with respect to like getting a citation or just in general?
Just in general, helping, in essence, like finding people someplace, it's until very recently been very cold.
So the county manager actually convened a meeting of several of us last week on this issue, and we had seen some outcomes locally that, at least in the meeting, it was suggested that the shelter had shuttered, and that's what maybe why we were seeing some different outcomes in the community. I think our social services, Jessica and her team, do an outstanding job, and we coordinate with them when we encounter somebody in the course of our duties to see if what can be done, what resources are available. Not everybody wants that help, but we partner with a lot of agencies, and a lot of those in terms of shelters and such are off the hill, but we do what we can. We have a list of resources available. We make those known and offered. Some people take advantage of those, and I think there are some great success stories out of our social services program, and then there are other times where people just don't want the help.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Neil Clinton?
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
So I have a few questions. I'm all over the place. It's kind of good that I went last. You mentioned lateral transfers. How many of those do we have?
Well, it depends. I don't know the specific breakdown of our candidates in terms of and it varies from recruitment to recruitment, but and we try to do a combination of those because having new officers keeps our field training program robust, and yet bringing in somebody that is certified significantly reduces the amount of training time and the availability of them to our actual number. So it depends. I just signed off on a recruitment this week, and we did everything, full background, ready to go, and he declined. So said he couldn't take the pay cut. So, but it's not for a lack of good candidates. One thing that we did that you need to be aware of, I think, is law enforcement across the country really took a hit, and it was hard to recruit, and nobody wanted to do this, and a lot of agencies likely lowered standards. We never did that. So the people that we hire and attract are good quality people. Officer Garcia, I'll mention her again. We hit a home run when we hired her, and she has significant experience, and it pays off because she's outstanding. So we'll get there. I'm not, there's a lot that goes into that issue, housing and other factors, but like the county manager said, we're not getting, zero applicants. We're getting good applicants. It takes time. We have to do our due diligence. We have to do our background, and we'll get there.
So I'm going to say this because I said this last time. You said a lot of words, but I didn't hear any numbers.
Go ahead.
So have you hired any policemen in the lateral transfer for us here in Los Alamos? 1, 2, 3. I know that you just mentioned the one that we just had, the one that declined. But have we hired any lateral transfers?
Absolutely.
And how many were those?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I would say probably more than half of our.
So the 3918?
At least.
Okay. And you also alluded to something that I was definitely going to be headed towards, because with lateral transfers, there is a possibility of previous policemen having had some type of misconduct or something, which is why they transferred. But what I'm hearing you say is that the ones we hired, you've done your due diligence, and there have been none of those issues, which is why they're here.
That's correct, ma'am.
Cool. Okay, all right. That's one. And then two, regarding the accidents, are there more during the weekday or on the weekends?
Definitely the weekdays, and typically during high ingress and egress hours. I didn't bring that data with me, but it would probably mirror that the data you're seeing on the speed chart fairly closely. Remember, this data is one direction, so you see a high peak. You see those high peaks between, anywhere from 6 to 10 a.m. But that's just because that's the ingress. If we had a camera on the other side, you would see that peak flipped.
That's a good segue to my next question. So when we talk about jurisdiction on the truck route, who has that jurisdiction? Do we have it or does Lionel have it?
We do. We have an MOU with DOE actually, that allows us to enforce there.
So with us having the jurisdiction, which now is going to lead me into a fourth one. So if there are no real, so we expect people to do the right thing. That's what we really want. However, if there's no ramifications for them not paying these tickets, because they could just start racking these tickets up, then what?
I'm not saying there aren't any ramifications. It's just we haven't really. I think part of that's vendor specific, which I, haven't selected a vendor because you haven't approved this. But part of it's vendor specific, and part of it is, what is tolerable from an internal perspective. Do we want to send people to collections? Do we want to tow vehicles, boot vehicles? I mean, there's other sanctions, I guess you could say, that are available that I'm not sure there would, going back to tolerance, I don't know that there would be a tolerance if we started booting a bunch of vehicles, for example. So that's a conversation I would need to have with the county manager and kind of ferret out those details.
Okay. You also mentioned early on that there were strategies for avoidance for the people who were saying, okay, I know where these cameras are, so now I'm just not going to go that way. And I realize that there's a reason why you didn't allude to them, but are you comfortable alluding to them now, or do you just want to keep that in the pocket?
I mean, I can't give out all my.
So, I know. I get that. I get that.
We just, in our internal discussions, we feel that if a person is, hell bent on speeding rather than just do the speed limit, then they will probably try to find ways around these cameras, whether that's going a different direction. There's things on the internet that purport to say how you can block your plate with lemon juice and all this other stuff. And yeah, people will try all of that, I'm sure.
The data points that you brought up to actually narrow down where the people are speeding in the curves and the other places, are you able to use those same data points to say, okay, this is where the majority of people speed, so this is where we know we need to focus? So an example for me is if you know it's going to be on the third S curve coming up, I'm thinking that people who don't live here, who do come and they're coming up in that morning time, they have called it the Los Alamos 500. So knowing that is the case, we know that that particular data point is, or that area is a problem. So can't we focus on that?
We've had this sign that created this data. We've had that at different points along the truck route and in other areas of the county. Remember, if this program is adopted, we can't go outside of the county, so we can't do the main hill, Totave, those areas. But when we've had this with this sign camera on the truck route, actually, I think I mentioned in a previous meeting, we had this camera up just prior to the fatal that occurred on the truck route in February of last year. And it was actually at about a 4.8%. It was further down towards where the fatal occurred, actually. And we actually had a 4.8% violation rate at that time. So we think people have seen in the media that this is being discussed, and they think it's there. They think that sign is actually active, and we think that that's a result of why we're seeing some lower numbers, which is great. But there's no enforcement capacity to this. It's just data.
Is it possible to have an MOU with the Tatavi?
It's not because, although I did meet with the governor of Sinai maybe a week and a half ago and gave him the report that I had given to you about speed cameras, and it's something they're going to look into. Now, I certainly don't speak for the Pueblo, but he has the information, and I can tell you it's a very big concern of theirs.
Because I'm thinking that if there's a way to partner,
Yeah, we can't. We are looking at giving them some.
Madam Chair, Councilor Neil Clinton, we are looking to see if we can support them, and they're working on looking at it and making any requests. At this point in time, it looks like it's not something that's prohibitive for them. We're just giving them ideas. But the reason why it can't go past our jurisdiction is this is a local ordinance that does not apply. It's not enforceable beyond our boundaries. In order for that to happen, the jurisdiction would have to approve their own ordinance for that to happen. And it would also be a resource issue on our side. We'd have to consider the resources we're pulling outside of the county to support that.
so a couple of things came to mind when you said that. I remember going off the hill and I was flying like a bat out of Hades. I know I was. And they were at the bottom of that hill, and they were smart. There were like three of them. It's like one was watching, the other one was saying go, and then the other one was actually executing the go. So that's why I'm thinking if there's a way to partner with them, then I think that would be helpful. Just a thought. And then my last thing is, does this budget include the 3 speed cameras about which we spoke earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My position hasn't changed. Okay, but thank you for taking my questions.
Thank you.
I think I got them all.
Got it?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions from councilors? Councilor Han.
Just a real quick question. So do you have jurisdiction between the guard gates on Pajarito Road?
Pajarito is part of our jurisdiction.
Okay,
Yes.
so you're able to get in through the guard gates? Okay. So I was thinking that would be the alternative. All the other people would say, oh, they can't get in there. You know, but I guess you can.
We're in there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from councilors? I have one quick question. Since we have our DOE representative present, we have an MOU with DOE to do patrols on DOE roads that you just mentioned. Does DOE compensate us in any way for that?
No.
Is that a possibility?
I didn't look at that with this project. We've met once formally a couple weeks ago, and we're meeting again tomorrow, but it was really more about placement and there's certain security concerns with cameras and such on
Sure.
the property. We didn't really I think there may even be some prohibition on that end, but I'm not a lawyer, but I didn't really even go that route when I was evaluating the program.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any public comment on this item? Go ahead and step up to the microphone, please. And state your name, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you can.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the council. It's a real pleasure to be here in person. This is important enough to be here in person this evening to really support the chief and the LAPD on this very important traffic safety initiative. My name is Ted Wyka. I am the Department of Energy as well as the National Nuclear Security Administration Federal Manager for the Los Alamos National Laboratory. I would like to make a short statement on the record that the Department of Energy as well as the National Nuclear Security Administration supports the Los Alamos Police Department in its efforts to improve traffic safety across the Los Alamos County as well as the lab. Now, as in all my previous testimonies, I've discussed the urgent need for these initiatives, from a safety of not only the workforce, but the entire community. And I receive tons of feedback, from my employees as well as lab employees every day that the scariest part of their day is, commuting to work as well as going home. Not only for themselves, but they're for their spouses and young drivers. And so it's definitely a quality of life issue. And I am a resident here in the community. So I say this with not too lightly that this is probably the worst in the NNSA enterprise in terms of traffic violations and aggressive driving, mainly because of very limited routes, the terrain. So this is a partnership, and let me be real clear that, speeding and aggressive driving is a performance issue, especially repetitive, violations like that. And security clearances requires reporting, those type of violations. So NNSA DOE is here to partner with the LAPD to identify locations for speed enforcement cameras on the lab where they can be most effective, and we'll defer to the police department as well as the county to manage programs. So we really sincerely appreciate, the county council as well as the county manager, the LAPD chief, the county attorney, and the continued collaboration in this effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wyka. Any other public comment on this item? Is there anyone online, Ms. Madison?
Chair, I will check. If you'd like to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature. We do have someone. Ms. O'Neill, you should be able to unmute. Please state your full name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Maura O'Neill, and I would like to say that nobody likes a citation, but nobody likes to see someone they know and love, or even somebody they don't know, be injured or die in an accident that could be in a crash that could be prevented by some of the provisions that the police chief and the department are recommending here. A lot of professionals have put a lot of work into this. People who know about how traffic works and traffic control works, and Councillor Hand mentioned that she was concerned about the citations affecting people's jobs. Well, NNSA has made it very clear that they told their people, we would rather you were late to a meeting than that you speed and get in a crash. And so I agree with the chief that an educational program would be good as this is introduced, but a lot of people are scared. The chief responded when I was hit head on Diamond in February 2024, and I was lucky to be alive. The chief sent me a picture of my vehicle while I was at the hospital. But, we've had head out, that was outside Station 4 on Diamond Drive. I think we need to see council defer to the professionals in our county when it comes to making these recommendations. Adding ideas is great, but it bothers me to see people worrying about people's perception of when they get a ticket. I've had a few tickets in my life, and I've always felt guilty and remorseful. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Any other commenters online?
Chair, I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
Thank you. Is there a counselor willing to make a motion? Counselor Righty? We've been having this discussion for an hour. Go ahead, Counselor Righty.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I move that council tentatively approve the proposed budget for the police department in the amount of $17,226,071 and budget option items 8, 9, and 10.
Second.
So I have a motion by Counselor Righty and a second by Counselor, I forget her last name again.
Can we move the budget options to the parking lot? I'd like to move the budget options to the parking lot.
We have a motion and a second. Do you want to ask if they want to change their motion or modify their motion? Or do you want to just discuss them further?
I want to discuss them further because
Okay.
it looks like we don't have the personnel for this, but you have 10 people down in a department. You have a long way to go just to be in the position to start this.
Okay.
I'd
We
like
can,
to can I have a vote on my motion?
yes, I mean, we can have further discussion
yeah.
on this as a parking lot item. That's fine.
I would like to just make a comment because I heard
Yes.
the comment about, is DOE paying for this? I'll just point out, remind council that DOE already pays for 80% of our GRT that we get, so I feel like this is an investment. Obviously, I made the motion, so we can have more discussion later in the parking lot, but I'll be supporting this, obviously.
Yeah. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All right, could we have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Yes,
So,
discussion or any question on the motion?
yes.
Go ahead.
So we're including items 8, 9, and 10.
Yes.
And if we vote yes, it's still tentative, but then we've got a parking lot to talk about the budget part, correct?
Yes.
Cool. All right. I'm good now.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Counselor Rigor.
So 8, 9, and 10 are going to the parking lot, and then I'll vote yes.
Okay.
Counselor Cole.
Yes.
Counselor Haveman.
Yes.
Counselor Herman.
Yes?
Counselor Righty.
Yes.
Counselor Neil Clinton.
Yes.
Counselor Hand.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
So just a point of order, the motion was actually including the items
It did.
in the motion, but they're also in the parking lot.
Yes.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
we're going to have some more discussion about them when we
Good.
talk about the parking lot
Okay,
items. All right, it is now 8:20. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 8:30. All right, we are back, and we are going to talk about Public Works. Mr. Martinez.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. For those of here and online that may not know me, I'm Eric Martinez. I'm the Public Works Director. I've been officially in this role for about 2 months now, which has been challenging and which also has the added pressure of having the 3 prior Public Works Directors still here. So, but in any case, the job has been fun and challenging and exciting. So, so with that, I'm here to present the department's proposed fiscal year 26 budget. Some of you may recall, if we can see the first slide. There we go. Some of you may recall seeing this slide last year, which has been updated with the latest council strategic goals. As we continue through the presentation, I'll speak more on how Public Works contributes to each of the 5 strategic goals as we review the department's significant accomplishments with the upcoming slides. Next slide.
I'm sorry, I lost it just a sec.
There we go. Did Juan put you up to that? Okay, next slide, Linda. Thank you. Next slide. So in this slide, it tells you that the Public Works is a big department, as you know, consists of 9 divisions, and these divisions are broken down into 2 funding categories. So one is the general fund, and the second is the enterprise fund. The enterprise fund includes the airport, environmental services, and transit divisions. And as you know, an enterprise fund is one that generates revenue. In the airport's case, revenue is a combination of grants and revenue via the new fuel farm, while transit revenue is generated through federal and state grants. Next slide, please. So the next few slides highlight the significant accomplishments for each of our 9 divisions. I didn't include all of them as we'd be here quite a while, but I wanted to touch on a few of them, starting with our administration division. This division is comprised of our office staff, Ms. Louise Romero, Ms. Rachel Badella, myself, and now our new Deputy Public Works Director, Keith Wilson, who's sitting right here behind me. So welcome, Keith. And as this slide illustrates, in addition to supporting the Transportation Board and events, staff supports the Adopt a Road program, which now has 8 organizations enrolled. Ms. Romero was also successful and instrumental in securing a New Mexico Clean and Beautiful grant for this program, and wanted to recognize her for her efforts as well. Thank you. Next slide. So the airport division is comprised of 1 FTE, and that's the airport manager. And since we hired Mr. Gary Goddard last year, he has been quite busy implementing the sale and purchase of aviation fuel associated with the recent completion of the fuel farm, and has been quite active in making improvements to the airport property, along with supporting community events and organizations like the EAA. Next slide. Capital projects and facilities is probably one of our busiest divisions based on sheer volume of work and number of projects they manage. On the project management side, we all know that the planning, design, and construction phases of a project can span several fiscal years. The most notable projects completed on this list and shown on this slide include a variety of projects from both our CAP and MFM programs. We also completed the electrical upgrades at Ashley Pond, and on behalf of Community Services, to accommodate food trucks for the summer concerts, and the renovation of the standby room at PCS for the utility crews that Mr. Shelton mentioned yesterday. As an update, the permanent chiller for the ice rink is scheduled to be delivered and installed this coming May. So that's good news. And this group is currently actively managing about 30 projects, and has about a combination of 75 active and program projects on their to-do list. And speaking of volumes, our facility crews completed over this last fiscal 24 fiscal year 1,166 work orders, which range in the realm of plumbing, lighting, HVAC, and other requests like drywall patching, painting, roof repairs, carpentry, and emergency repairs to our 47 county facilities. Next slide. Our custodial team maintains the cleanliness of county facilities, including refinishing of the wood floors. In this case, Betty Hart and Art Center had the recent refinishing. They installed a new hearing loop and PA system at the senior center. Purchased new Rhino snow removers that you see in the lower right photo to help move more snow efficiently whenever it does snow. We haven't gotten enough of that. And they supported about 3,000 events at various county facilities. Next slide. So our engineering division manages our pavement condition program, or as some of you may recall, the pavement condition index that keeps score of the condition of all our streets. And so they also partner with Traffic and Streets to help with managing our pavement condition in the form of the pavement rehabilitation projects that Traffic and Streets performs. So some of their recent accomplishments include completion of the Loma Linda and Rose Street reconstruction project, as well as initiating the Urban Trail project, Bathtub Row, and DP Road projects, which are currently scheduled to wrap up here pretty soon. As you know, Urban Trail, we had the ribbon cutting, and that one is complete. So success story there. And that was managed by our prior project manager, Keith Wilson. So thanks to him for that. We've also initiated design on several projects, including Denver Steels, Canyon Rim Trail Phase 3, the New Mexico 4 crossing, and the Trinity Drive safety improvements. This group is currently managing about $8.5 million in state and federal grants as well, associated with these projects, as well as some of the plans that are in this in the following bullet that include updating the mid-block crossing policy, the public works design standards, and the pedestrian master plan, which council received an update on recently. So I'd like to also mention that our county engineer is also very active and a key member in development reviews that community development department takes in. So next slide, please. So environmental services, we have seen a little bit of uptick in the participation of our yard trimming collection. And I wanted to give a shout out to our team for the extra brush collection that is currently continuing through May the 9th. We're still working with our sustainability manager and DOE on a lease amendment to operate aerated static pile composting at the eco station, and we're scheduled to meet with DOE staff again very soon. About 9,200 tons of concrete and asphalt material has been recycled for use in local projects, including many landfill projects as well. Lastly, I have some more current numbers for you regarding bear carts. As of today, we've ordered and received 1,194 new carts, and currently there is no waiting list, as requests are being addressed daily during scheduled routes. And I imagine once bears come out of hibernation, we'll receive more of those requests. So we're prepared. Next slide. Our fleet division is a model of production and consistency. They receive a ton of work orders for work on all the vehicles and equipment, in our fleet. As you've seen, there's been multiple requests for additional fleet vehicles. So this is the group that manages their preventative maintenance and their repair. So they do a great job year after year. And so just wanted to recognize them for that. Our fleet manager is active in the participation and development of the fleet conversion study and also the climate action plan. They have supported the procurement of electric buses and transit bus cameras, as well as the electric golf carts. They acquired 3 new electric vehicles, 29 replacement units, and 27 new vehicles, and recently auctioned 14 units for revenue of $89,000. Again, our fleet manager is an active participant in various county initiatives, including Adopt a Road, Bike to Work, the Fleet Conversion Study, and Climate Action Plan. And fleet staff collaborates with many team members across county operations, that have included the operation of the new airport fuel farm and the purchase of vehicles and equipment, including EVs, and the placement of EV charging structure. So, next slide, please. So, Traffic and Streets. Our Traffic and Streets division has done a great job with asphalt repairs, one most notably on Central Avenue that's shown there in the picture and noted. They've installed 70 pole bases for the new wayfinding signage, and that installation is continuing into this year. So you might start seeing some wayfinding signs go up here in the next few weeks or within the month. And crews are very active in many of county events, providing traffic control plans and ensuring pedestrian and motorist safety. And lastly, and kind of a new thing this year was the Name the Snowplow contest, which was very successful and something we'll maybe look forward to doing again. So that was a neat event. Next slide, please. Transit. Transit has was granted a total revenue of over $5 million in federal funding this last fiscal year. And so we continue to look forward to that. Currently, there's been lots of questions about federal funding and how that's affecting local governments. Currently, we've been given reassurances that anything that's been awarded and obligated is still okay. Looking forward, we're not sure, but we're keeping our ears to the ground on that front. We have 2 electric buses ordered, and we're looking to hopefully have delivery by late 2026, so late next year. So it'll take some time for those to get put together and shipped over to us, and I know that's something that we've been talking about for quite a while already, and so we look forward to getting some movement on that. And then Transit Fleet also received a new Easy Rider bus and a paratransit vehicle as well. So one of the things that we've been struggling with in transit is hiring and retaining drivers. And that continues to be an ongoing challenge. But as of today, we're only down 3 drivers. So that's been an improvement over the recent past. So hopefully we're closing that gap. Next slide. So the next 2 slides summarizes how the budget supports each of the division's role with maintaining and improving our transportation and facility infrastructure, or with providing essential services to the community. I will highlight just a few notable deltas compared to last year. And so the first being with the airport, and that one is the very last sentence that's underlined and italicized. So with the new fuel farm complete, the budget now includes expenditures and revenues for the purchase and sale of aviation fuel. So when you look at the budget summary, that's the reason you're seeing a delta in there. Next slide. For fleet, equipment replacement expenditures increased slightly. However, we still have a healthy reserve balance, or what we call ending working capital, which we maintain for emergency losses and inflationary spikes, such as those that may be associated with that dreaded T word, tariffs. For environmental services, the increase in professional and contractual services is primarily due to significant cost hikes in our hauling contract and in our landfill contract as well. Additionally, bear carts are now included under contractual services since we actually executed a contract with our new vendor, so we moved that budgetary item to contractual services. We will be keeping an eye on these costs as the year continues and keeping our eye on possible rate increases, which could be a possibility in future years, maybe 27, 28, just because of increased costs with hauling and with landfill costs year after year. But that's something we're definitely keeping our eye on. The increase in materials and supplies is largely due to the reclassification of bear carts to contractual services, as I mentioned earlier, and is an adjustment to better align with our prior actuals. The capital outlay item decreased with the removal of the anticipated loan for the compost facility, which is now expected to be requested probably in fiscal year 27. So we'll keep keep our radar on that one as we continue our discussions with DOE on food composting. Next slide, please. So overall, this is our budget summary for the department. Again, I highlighted the significant changes to bring to your attention. And overall, if you look at the bottom line, the department's overall variance from last year was 2%. Next slide. And we do have one budget option to present to council. And this is based on the determination from the EPA proposing to designate Los Alamos County as a MS4 community. So this budget option would actually be utilized to pay for consultant services to perform the initial stormwater management plan associated with an MS4 permit. Next slide, please. So I added this slide as a looking forward slide. What can we look forward in the coming year? There's a lot here, and included in this is on the top of the list is 13 capital projects that the department will be moving forward, from roads and trails to an airport hangar and to a social services hub, which Jessica is very excited about. Not to mention our active and ongoing sustainability efforts to working to improve our operational efficiency and customer service. One notable item is the very last bullet about transit weekend service. And so we're looking to, in the coming year, roll out a pilot program for that weekend transit service. We're evaluating our staffing currently, along with the bandular service, to see when the best timing of rolling that out will be. And then with our recent implementation of the microtransit software, will only help with programming that service. So more information to come on that, but wanted just to give council a heads up that that's coming. And next slide, please. And this is some photos of our team that helped get all of this work done. So big shout out to them, and all this wouldn't be possible without their support, and from them and our division managers all the way to our field crews. And thank you, Chair and Council. This concludes my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Are there questions from Councilor Hand?
Thank you, Chair. What is the name of the snowplow?
Madam Chair, Councilor Hand, Snowway.
Snowway.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very cute. Also, you said you're down 3 drivers, and what are your plans to hire to so that you have the ability to increase your routes?
So our recruitment is ongoing. So we keep that open. We recently had 5 vacancies, and we just filled 2 of them. So that gets us to 3 currently. So our recruitment is active and ongoing. One of the struggles that we have is retaining drivers. They come here and then they decide to get work somewhere else, and so that's been one of the difficulties.
Manager Laurent.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Hand. I just want to add that the county does an amazing service. We actually, take drivers in and do all of the work and training to get them to the point where they can get their CDL license. And the reality is just a lot of folks just don't even make it through that process as well. So there is quite an onboarding process as well, and time between the hiring and then getting them actually comfortable behind a bus running a route by themselves. So we invest, and we lose some drivers to other transit agencies, but we still believe that's the right, way to go and to offer that training program. And we also, we have a position called a driver trainee. And really it's just about being 21 and having a license. And I always take an opportunity to say, if you're interested or know anybody, we would like to receive applications. And like Mr. Martinez mentioned, we keep that as an open recruitment. So we're accepting at all times.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see, I thought I had another question about you had mentioned the T word. And so basically, you're anticipating potential increases in costs. Are you going to provide us with an update in the future that says where you think we are on any increases, and how that's going to impact the budget, so that we can plan better, for this year as well as out years?
Madam Chair, Councillor Hand, that's something we certainly can do. We're going to keep our ear to the ground on that one and look at expenses as the year goes on. And so if council would like an update on some of that, we can definitely do that.
I think it'd be helpful just to see what impacts we're feeling, in all the different areas, and to know where it is impacting us, because I think there's a lot of questions about how we are going to be impacted.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilor Neil Clinton?
I actually don't have a question, it's more of a comment. I remember South Carolina was one of the last states that had student bus drivers. And I was 16 driving a school bus, and I know that that's not comparable to the RTDs, but I know that if you're not from here, coming up that front route can be intimidating. And I think that's where we tend to kind of get folks scared off. But, I'm thinking, maybe because I was young and dumb, I didn't know any better. But, when you get a little bit older, you get a little bit more apprehensive. So I commend us for still extending that great invitation to go into a career that can just take you in so many different directions. I think we're doing the right thing.
Thank you, Councillor Neil Clinton. You bring up a good point, because that's some of the reason we've lost some. It's a little too challenging for them. It wasn't what they expected. Our supervisors do a great job with training and helping the employees, get comfortable. But as you say, our terrain is a little more challenging than other places. But yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Reddy?
Thank you, Chair Cole, and thank you, Mr. Martinez, for the presentation. I was just looking at your high-level budget, and so Public Works has a number of, I guess, enterprise funds officially right within that list. So I was just trying to roughly total up the funding sources, and because you alluded to that, some of these are heavily funded by grants, others are not. So do you know roughly how much so we have 69 million, we won't round it up any more than that, $69 million in the proposed budget. Do you know about how much of that would be grant funding? Because I was trying to go back to the individual, I think it's on another part of the book where we have the funding sources for like the airport and transit and what else we got? Environmental services obviously is fees primarily,
Right.
but so what's our vulnerability out of that? $69 million. How much of that is federal grants?
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Righty. I'll look to the finance team, but I'll provide a quick answer as far as Public Works. So as far as, so we have 3 divisions that utilize federal funds: the airport, transit, and engineering for our transportation projects. So currently with transit, this was it in fiscal year 24. It was about 5.3 million that was granted in federal funds. In engineering, we currently are actively utilizing 8.5 million for transportation projects and updates to our plans. And then in the airport, I think we're right around the area of a million or 2 million currently. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ms. Thomas and Ms. Dadzi.
Madam Chair, Councilor Righty, primarily transit is our biggest recipient of federal funds. We do have a grant match of about 1.2 million, so about a little over 5 million would be our concern if we get to that point. We get the other funding that Mr. Martinez was talking about is primarily for capital purchases, so it's not necessarily for operations.
Okay, but those are important part of those capital project funding,
Correct.
right? Okay. So, so only, I mean, a small fraction is from the general fund, probably. I mean, I was trying to total up, I think it's around $20 million. Yeah. Does that sound about right? Okay. So then the rest of it is, I mean, it's a combination of different kinds of funds. And then I was also, so given that, I was interested in the kind of, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen come October 1st with the new fiscal year, but that's in, you know, that's just after the first quarter of this budget we're adopting. Do we have an understanding of like how we would be, you know, it seems like it's pretty soon, right? So how would we be responding to funding that might be not available or, you know, different criteria? We don't know yet. At this point, do we have kind of a plan for how we'd be trying to either, you know, curtail projects or, because I'm just kind of concerned about public works with that funding source.
Madam Chair, Councilor Righty, I can tell you that we're closely monitoring and we, you know, receive information every day about areas of concern or not concern. At this point, we haven't received any reason to be concerned, but certainly any day can change that. So we're just trying to keep our communication channels open. But at this point, anything that's already been promised or under contract or, you know, we haven't received any notification or questioning around what we're doing with it or any notice that there might be some funding or pulled. So nothing, no alarm bells are going off with us at this point on this fund.
Okay. And then I guess related, it's great to hear about all the different projects that are being planned, assuming we have funding for some of them continuing on. And I know we'd had some discussion about the pedestrian plan and kind of the alternate pathway thinking. So within what's already programmed, how much of it that would be providing some alternate, because we were just talking about safety and getting people off of roads, you know, walking and biking and whatever, you know, whatever other mode of transit they have would be safer. So how much do we have that's coming soon to help with some alternate facilities for people so they can kind of get off the busy streets?
Madam Chair, Councilor Righty. So with that, I would have to refer you to our transportation CIP in the budget book. But briefly, what we have programmed right now is Canyon Rim Trail Phase 3 and Trinity Drive safety improvements are two that are most notable, along with the trail improvements with the New Mexico Fort Trail and crossing improvement project in White Rock. We have submitted for several grants associated with another project that's in our bicycle transportation master plan, and that's the Canela de Buey trail corridor in White Rock as well.
Okay.
So just some things off the top that I can recall.
Okay, and then I was also looking at I know we're going to talk about CIP, but you might have more details. So we had the presentation on the transit center. So there were some funds spent in FY 2024. And then there is a budget amount in 2025. And then there's a projected amount. So that would be an additional amount on transit center design. So where does that sit? Because I'm trying to see if there's a row that matches up further on. Maybe there is.
Councilor Ridey, are you referring to the CIP list?
Yeah, the CIP list. So it's the CP 5034, and I believe that that one does have an amount in and out here, if I'm lining up the pages correctly.
Quickly, Councilor Ridey, so we have completed our efforts on that study, and there was real no path forward as far as anything more immediate. Mr. Wilson can elaborate more on some of the details if you like, but as far as any additional budget, we don't have anything planned for that currently.
Okay, so there is no number then.
Ms. Doddsy can shed more light on that.
Can you clarify? It would actually be good to have those numbers on the next page.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Councilor Ridey, there is $2 million in 2028.
Okay, still for that. Okay. That's what I thought, because I thought maybe, I wasn't sure what the status of that one was.
Chair Cole, Councillor Ridey. So we, as Eric mentioned, we did conclude the study report. We haven't formally posted it on the website yet, but essentially, I think last May we presented a preliminary findings of the study, and after that meeting, we basically backed off on trying to provide a large transit center in the downtown area. We did do some additional analysis and kind of identified a potential of making a transfers, not necessarily a station, but an area kind of on the Diamond Trinity area, where buses from the mesas could transfer to buses into town instead of having to go all the way across to the transit center and then transfer there and then come all the way back again. So that's kind of where we kind of left the study as a potential to look at a transfer spot on the west, and we just haven't at this point moved forward with anything specific.
Okay, and then the other thing I was interested in, I think it's not a street, but it's a public works. This was one where I didn't see a number, and maybe I'm just missing the rows here, but I think there's nothing over there. So there's the Manhattan Project Dorm is in the first page, CP 1006, and it's got monies. Obviously, we'd spent some money on it previously, and there's money in this year, but there's no. So is that one actually? Was that one on your list that you had? Is that supposed to be completed in the next couple months?
Madam Chair, Councilor Ridey, so that's a project that we're still actively working on. We recently received approval from Planning and Zoning on the site plan.
Okay.
And so now we're continuing with design development. We're at a 60% stage currently, and we're looking to wrap up that design and eventually put it out to bid in the, looking latter this year, going into next year with construction.
Okay, so but the money that was in there is not all going to be spent this year. It's like $4.3 million.
Councilor Ridey, correct. It'll likely span into next fiscal year for
It's just that's all that's been allocated, and it's going to stay there, and then there'll be a carryover, whatever's left. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ridey. Other questions? Can you remind us where we are on the EPA ruling regarding stormwater?
Madam Chair and councilors, Currently, we're still waiting for our legal staff to provide us some direction on where things are currently at. Ms. Lorette may be able to shed more light on that. Thank you.
Sure. Madam Chair and Counselor, we did receive a notice that we were going to be designated. We responded to that, and they to the draft, and then it was not revised. But at this point, we don't have any. It didn't include any timeline or anything like that, so we don't really know when we might get further notice or any actions because the designation didn't include any of that. I supported. The county has always wanted to do best practices with stormwater management. We do a lot of it through cleaning streets, taking care of our drainage ways. But I think in preparation for this, it would be a good to look at our stormwater management and document all that we do and get some recommendations because whatever happens with the designation or not, I think having that plan and following best practices is something that the community is interested in. Council has supported in the past.
Okay, so you plan to move forward, assuming that budget item gets approved, with a stormwater management plan, regardless of EPA's final ruling or final direction.
That's correct, Madam Chair. And then should that designation move forward, it would leave us that much more prepared as a basis for developing the plan.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online, Ms. Madison?
If you'd like to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature. Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Alrighty, thank you. Is there a counselor that would like to make a motion? Counselor Haveman.
I move that council tentatively approve the proposed budget for the Public Works Department in the amount of $69,297,959 and budget option number 12.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Counselor Haveman and a second by Counselor Neil Clinton. Any discussion? All right, could we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Herman, Yes.
Counselor Haveman,
Yes.
Counselor Cole,
Yes.
Counselor Rigor,
Yes.
Counselor Neil Clinton,
Yes.
Counselor Righty,
Yes.
Counselor Hand.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, let the record show the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Do we want to do non-departmental? We ready to do that? Okay, let's move on.
Yes, Madam Chair and Council, I'd like to present the non-departmental budget summary. And our non-departmental budget represents our debt service for our 2013 GRT revenue bonds in the amount of $4.5 million and the proposed new debt service in the amount of $5.3 million. It also represents our emergency declarations fund, which houses our ARPA allotment that the county received, and we do have until December 31st, 2026 to spend that down. So I will stand for any questions.
Councilors have any questions? Councilor Rigor.
Where is that money going for the declarations fund?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rigor, so we do have about most of that is going to social services. So we have an agreement in place for nature therapy that we will be spending that.
Nature therapy in social services.
Yes, it's to assist with those who need that service.
Okay, well, does somebody have a description of the program? Yeah.
Good
Go ahead.
evening, Chair and Councilors. Happy to give a little bit more detail on that. We have encumbered some of the funds from the ARPA through social services for what is called the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. It is a way for us to expand the spectrum of lowercase mh mental health services. We are having 23 people trained in this. It is a emerging best practice. One of the terms it's often called is forest bathing. It's a way for people to literally unplug and be trained in how to facilitate leading people through meditations and other ways of breathing, lowering your heart rate, lowering anxiety while out in any of our trails or natural spaces. So that will be part of it. The other part of the ARPA funds, if I can just jump in, is we had received a grant for the mobile homeless outreach from the New Mexico Department of Health. That was a 1-year pilot. That funded a 19-hour casual position at social services. That grant ended, and so we used the balance of the ARPA funds to continue that position at social services with those funds.
How does it get funded in an ongoing fashion? Because it doesn't the ARPA, the money expires now, right? It has to be spent.
Yep. The position is encumbered through December 31st, 2026. And after that, we will either no longer have the position or we'll have data and we'll be back budget time next year to.
And the same with your other therapy program.
Yep. That is funded for two different cohorts. So we'll have a lot of data after that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions from councilors? Do we have any public comment on the non-departmental budget? I don't see anybody in the room. Is there anyone online?
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay. Is there a counselor willing to make a motion? Counselor Haveman?
I move that council tentatively approve the proposed budget for the non-departmental in the amount of $10,363,787.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Counselor Haveman and a second from Counselor Neil Clinton. Any discussion? Counselor Rigor?
Well, this is how we get trapped in the future with this kind of debt service, so it'll go on for a long time. I'm not sure the exact term, but this is the main debate with treating the previous years as was a windfall and using it on capital objects as opposed to running a bond, which now we have future liabilities, which could really squeeze us in the future. So that is the point of probably all of my discussion the first day. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor Rigor. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to comment that I think in these times with people losing their jobs and having to shift their way of living, or we're not going to use the dreaded T word, but just in general, I think anything that we can do to shore up anyone's mental health is an investment in our community. So I have to admit, I was like, what are we doing? What is that? What's that called? But once we received clarification, I think and again, a lot of people who live here are here because of the trails, the mountains, the air, all of that. So anything that can bolster that, I think, is a good investment.
Any other discussion? Counselor Rigor?
Yeah, I mean, comment to the debt service part. Of course, I'm not disputing at all the therapy program.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, could we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Neil Clinton,
Yes.
Counselor Hand,
Yes.
Counselor Herman,
Yes.
Counselor Wrighty,
Yes.
Counselor Rigor,
No.
Counselor Haveman,
Yes.
Counselor Cole.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, let the record show that the motion passes 6-1 with Councilor Rigor opposed. So we are at 9:20. I don't know if we're prepared to talk about CIP, and are we? Okay, let's jump into CIP, and you all right with that? Why? You
I was
can't,
expecting you to talk about it tomorrow, but yeah.
well, I mean,
You want the presentation? Do we have to vote?
it's it's presentation, and yeah, there would potentially be a motion.
Madam Chair, at some point, we could just get started and decide to continue if that's, get to a point where council wants to end at 10.
All right, let's go ahead and start at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councilors. So I would like to direct everyone to pages 275 to 278 in the proposed budget. This is where we have our CIP plan, or capital improvement projects plan. It's organized in two different ways. First by department, and the second is by strategic goal that the project is associated with. I do want to point out that any capital improvement project that was funded in a prior year and has remaining balance at the end of FY 2025, those balances will roll over into FY 26 unless there's been a specific effort to close that project. So they do not need to be reallocated. So I'm going to start with the proposed column, starting with expenditures. And I also want to point out that sometimes you'll see, especially with inflation and other things that we've seen going on with the projects that take multiple years, it is that we're adding to the base budget because we're anticipating and budgeting for that inflation. So I'm going to start under ASD and County Manager. And the first one is information technology projects, and there's an associated schedule with those projects, and it's based on what the county plans to implement each year. So this number does fluctuate according to what is scheduled. The next one is cost increases for all categories, and we do think that there are some cost increases that haven't been captured, so we wanted to provide a line item we could pull from on those projects if we start to see those overages. The next department is Public Works. And new FY 2026 projects include the White Rock Visitor Center food truck pads and Betty Earhart renovations. We are adding funds to the Emergency Operations Fund as well as Fire Station 4, as we do project those to come in higher than originally anticipated. We've also added $1 million for sustainability. That's for like routine maintenance project or something where there's an opportunity to do a more sustainable option or upgrade that will pay us back in the long run. But that is a fund that we could pull from to do those upgrades or sustainable options. We're also adding funds to our limited term project managers to keep projects moving forward. And the next department is under community development, and you'll notice there is no new funding proposed for 2026. And the reason for that is because new projects will be accounted for in the Economic Development Fund. However, the current ongoing projects for community development will still be in the CIP fund. And for those who are following along in the budget book, jumping over to page 277. The next department is the Department of Public Works Transportation, and we have the street CIP that also has an associated schedule in the budget book for reference. The new projects for Public Works Transportation include pavement condition index survey and traffic safety project. This is a project that to address the safety issues on Diamond Drive and NM 502, and it is related to the ordinances that PD presented with the speed cameras. This is the engineering part of it that is needed on the engineering side. We do anticipate cost increases for Canyon Rim Trail, Trinity Drive, NM4 Crossing, and Denver Steels. So those projects do reflect an increase in the base budget. However, there are grant opportunities to cover that we are seeking to cover some of those expenditures. And finally, we have community services. The CSD small capital does also have an associated schedule in the budget book. The CSD infrastructure FY 2026 funding is for a second round of playgrounds and trailheads and some for ADA improvements. The ice rink, flooring, and shade structure project, we do anticipate an additional $2 million is needed to supplement the prior funding amount to reconstruct the floor, install the shade structure, and the replacement chiller. The chiller portion of that project is already in process, but next we'll be studying the shade structure and then design the flooring. And finally, the athletic court renovations is in its early stages and new funds will be at Urban Park. I do also want to point out that some of the large projects that have been either removed or deferred to later years include the North Mesa Community Recreation Space, the Tween Center, and Fire Station 6. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Councilors have any questions on CIP? Councilor Righty?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for going over 2026. I mean, just looking at the differential between 2026 and 2027 in general. So typically, so by each of these departments, there's kind of a substantial drop compared to where we were. And I think that has to do with, so this CIP, then there's different ways of funding it, right? Because we had the bond proceeds for the broadband, that's separate. That's covered by the 35 million. Then we have the 40 million. And so and that's what I was asking about, like, it's only 2 million, I guess it's only 2 million. But there was the transit center in an out year. So it's a specific item in an out year, whereas lots of times we don't have anything specific in out years. And I was just curious about the philosophy, and obviously there were, like you mentioned, there's some things taken out. So that's to make the budget with the 0.25% basically work out. So keeping the 20% plus reserve. So there are other projects that might be necessary because we haven't gotten to the pavement condition index, and it's now perfectly fine-tuned, and we're just like adding asphalt to make it, continue to be perfect, right?
So, Madam Chair, Councilor Righty, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hybrid question. Or answer. To your question, yes, this capital budget reflects significant reductions in out years into the capital fund. It does cover debt service for the broadband and for the $40 million of debt service that is in the general fund, that is modeled as part of the general fund. There are projects in the for the road projects that are projected out. We just don't allocate them as specific jobs. But we do have placeholders for those routine maintenance transfers included in the model. And I will ask Ms. Dazzy to help me find that line item where we put the out years of the public works. It's
Well, there's
I think it's the street CIP.
Street CIP is the first row on that next.
Right, on the top of page 277, CP 5001. So what we do is when we have projects, we pull it down from that item into a specific project when we have one identified. So we do keep the fund, so it's not completely devoid of out years of specifically routine maintenance and replacement things that we know we want to continue to fund and not create a deferred maintenance situation. I would say what is not here is a lot of new capital beyond what we've already got programmed in case something comes up in the future, new projects or new opportunities. I would say the anomaly of the transit center, we could easily take that out or put that in a more into fund balance to say we could use that in the future when we know what the project is. I just left that one in because of the priority of transportation and mobility, and I just wanted to make sure we had some placeholder in there to make some improvements when that time comes.
Well, I was just, I was just looking at what's on here where we have the actuals from 23, 24, and then projected for 25. just looking at the transportation, public works. So you have 8, 9, 10, a really substantial, I guess the projected is still pretty high, 20, almost, 23. And then we have 26 at 12.7, 13, and then we go to half of that.